Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today. Welcome to filmandtvreview.com. Catch the latest film, TV and streamed show reviews every week. The views and opinions expressed by the authors and those providing comments are theirs alone. They do not reflect the views, opinions or position of filmandtvreview.com or their respective parent companies or affiliates. Filmandtvreview.com makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information in this program and is for entertainment purposes only. Episodes may contain adult humor and language. For full terms and conditions, see filmandtvreview.com.
Hello there, and welcome to our Film and TV Review July episode that we're looking really at the releases across streaming and the big screen over the last month. And I'm joined by my regulars, James, Alfonso, and Richard. And I think we'll just crack on. But today we'll be talking basically about Quiet Place, The Boys 4 concluded, Fly Me to the Moon, Twisters, Inside Out 2, Memory, Guilt, Long Legs, Kinds of Kindness, and The Acolyte, which also concluded this month. So let's start with A Quiet Place, which is a prequel of such. This is A Quiet Day, I think. So Richard, Alfonso, James, all of you three saw this. What was your impressions? Was it a necessary prequel, from what I gather, to A Quiet Place? Richard, do you want to start?
Yeah, no, it's not necessary. but not many prequels are necessary, in my opinion. But that's not the point of this talk. Yeah, it's a prequel to the John Krasinski movie that had also a sequel back in the day. Yeah, it's kind of a simple idea. It's from the point of view of Sammy, played by Lupita Nyong'o. We'll see kind of Judgment Day, kind of the end of the world, because it's the day where the aliens of A Quiet Place, the movie A Quiet Place, land on Earth. And when I say land, they land on asteroids, and they are almost invincible. So they like kill everyone. They can hear even like small sounds. So just like A Quiet Place, it's how to survive in a world where you have predators who can hear any even small sound, and are, as I said, almost invincible. And so I said you follow the journey of Lupita Nyong'o. And also later on in the movie, which is a spoiler by the way, of another guy that she meets on the road called Eric, played by Joseph Quinn, who is, in my opinion, actually a very good addition, a great supporting character, great actor. But I don't think I know him from somewhere. Now I see his face and rings a bell. I think he was in Stranger Things. the last season of Stranger Things. But yeah, in my opinion, it was so necessary. No, but was it a fun experience in movie theater? Yes, because it's not like actually I was bored. It was a good movie. It's not as good as A Quiet Place with and by John Krasinski, because in my opinion, you have the element of surprise. It was just a very surprising new thing back in the day. It doesn't add anything to the franchise, in my opinion. And also, it's not scary. From someone like you who gets scared quite easily in front of horror movies, A Quiet Place was very scary when you watch it in the movie theater. And this one wasn't, in my opinion, again, only for me. And I compared it, in my opinion, it's more of a drama like I Am Legend with Will Smith. It's like survival of you by yourself or with someone, but just one person. That like everything you have everything on your shoulders, and you have to not only survive from aliens or zombies or whatever, but you also have to fight against being desperation. That's the right word? Yeah, against desperation, and not actually wanted literally to give up. And I think that part was pretty good. That dramatic element of the movie.
James or Alfonso, you enjoy it as much or more than Richard, or the neutral man?
I mean, the first Quiet Place movie, so I think that was 2018, and I just remember like the start of the year, Three Billboards come out, and that was it was the first film I saw that year, and all year that was my favorite film. And I was like, nothing's going to top this. And then A Quiet Place did for me, because it was just like Richard said, it was a new sort of idea. This whole thing of, everybody's got to be quiet in the cinema because that's part of the tension, and it was a really, really good original film. The second one then starts with a bit of a prequel. Actually, there's a pre-credits prequel, I think, on part two, and then it goes into following Emily Blunt's character again, her family. And it was the first film I saw at the cinema after COVID, so it was great to be back in the cinema for that. It wasn't quite as good as the first one, but it was pretty interesting. Cillian Murphy's in it. And I had really high hopes for this, I think, and maybe my hopes were too high, because I was like, this is an interesting thing. It's called Day One. I'm a big fan of Lupita Nyong'o, and I agree with what Richard said. Actually, it's the I Am Legend comparison's quite. I think is bang on the money there, because it feels like a really interesting drama. But you're right, it doesn't feel scary. I don't. I'm not too hung up on titles usually. Like, I don't mind if a film like Civil War says it's Civil War, but it's about photojournalism, and it's fine. But this is called A Quiet Place Day One. And I think if it was called A Quiet Place Samira's Story, you'd just go, okay, it's an alternative story. But it isn't really Day One. Day One makes it sound like it's all going to be about the origin and stuff. In actual fact, she sort of gets, this is very early on, so she sort of gets knocked out when the initial invasion happens, and then we cut to some time later. It might be later that day, it might not be, but it feels like it's treading similar ground to the other films, but just with a different character. And then there's points where you sort of go, oh well, I kind of miss the characters that I've got to know here. Maybe there's a familiarity of the aliens as well, because the original Quiet Place does that thing of you never really see the aliens until the very end of the film. There's a brilliant opening attack in A Quiet Place where you can see something is running through the trees, but the trees obscure the view, and you never really get a view of what this alien thing is. And I think a lot of the best shots were kind of in the trailer for this. That said, Lupita Nyong'o is absolutely fantastic in this, and the actor that you mentioned as well, Joseph Quinn, is it? But Lupita Nyong'o is so expressive. There's moments when she's kind of almost like screaming with her eyes because she knows she can't make a sound. And they have this thing where they've got, rather than a extended family, they've got a cat to try and make you sort of, to try and have a different dynamic. And it sort of works quite well. There's a really sort of nice scene where they're doing something in a pub. I won't elaborate on what that is, but they're kind of, there's sort of like a show moment in a pub. or in like an old theatre or something. I think there's a similar idea in the first one of that. So I thought at the time, I thought, oh, that's good. And then I think afterwards, I was thinking, I think this is quite similar to what's been done before. But I will say, yeah, not particularly scary, not particularly quiet in a lot of places. Weirdly, there's a lot of like background noise and stuff. So I don't think they build the tension as well as John Krasinski does. But I thought the last shot of the film, the last sort of moment, was really surprising. So I didn't see that coming. So it was a sort of film. Often films dwindle towards the end, but it's sort of fine. It doesn't make me feel like we need to spin this off into a universe. I think it's fine. I would quite like them to do a Quiet Place Part 3 with Emily Blunt and just finish that off and just do that and maybe just leave it there, because I don't really see what we can have from going off in just different people's stories, but the same thing happening. Unless they do one that is like a day one film, which is about the government response, there might be something quite interesting and very sci-fi about that, and to do something a bit different. But this did feel really like you were just sort of watching an alternative version of the first film, but we've had that. So.
Alfonso, did you
I think the what basically what they said, they radically changed the kind of character that they used in the first two. In the first two, that was this family with the kids and this kind of all-American family. And in this one is more like a little bit outcasts, a little bit like people that feel alone in a big city in a way already. So it is. I felt sad for part of the movie because it felt a little bit like one of those 9/11 movies of disaster in a big place, but everyone feels very sad, and it starts from a sad situation before even the aliens arrive, and then these people are not heroes in that sense. They are people that are almost fighting depression within their own lives, and so it is interesting. It is like what remains after they are fighting more like an inside their own will to continue when everything seems to be up against them. And it was, in that sense, it felt a little bit different, a little bit less optimistic in general. And so I don't know. I mean, I like the format. I like the aliens. I would see any Quiet Place sequel. It was sort of I think gradually this series has become sadder and sadder. But still I think it is also about humanity among I don't know, ravaging destroying aliens. So it kind of continues with that theme. As they said, overall satisfying, but if you were asking for more big ideas, it's still about characters trying to escape aliens.
Okay, well, strong enough premise, I suppose. But I was just wondering, it's like a framework really that could be used. It's almost like could almost make a series of it. If it's like loose framework. But okay, all right. Anyway, so next,
Alfonso, you've actually made me want to rewatch it now, because maybe this is the thing: if you can do very different stories. I've not thought of that before. That the whole family dynamic is very positive, isn't it? And you're starting with these people who are outsiders, and that is a very interesting thing to do. And that is one of the positives of the film. It's much more human focused than it could be. They could have done this as just a crazy like action film, and it isn't that. So maybe I will rewatch it.
Okay. Right. So next, towards streaming on Prime, The Boys season 4 reached its current season conclusion. probably one of the most goriest series on TV right now, from a satire point of view also, and it's always been worth watching. I kind of enjoyed this series. It's very much a bit up and down here and there, but I generally definitely went to new limits with its gore. But let's see, Richard, what did you think of The Boys for this season?
So it's at least it's an interesting show because it creates debates, I guess, it creates discussions, but you cannot take anything from The Boys. It's so I, so I'm not gonna say that I'm a huge fan of The Boys. I discovered The Boys just when the third season was released, and I watched like everything in one go back in the day. And I haven't rewatched them ahead of season 4. I just watched NV, which is actually in a way kind of important. Good that Alfonso decided not to listen for any spoilers, because in a way I didn't realize that it's important to watch Gen V, FYI, I think, anyway. Maybe you don't need it, but I think it's better. Yeah, I think this show is definitely one of the best currently on streaming because it plays on different levels. It is superhero stuff, but a smart superhero stuff. But on TV, there's so many of them. On big screen or a small screen, this one is a smart one. It shows something that is terrifying, which is an invincible villain, literally, who has a level of intelligence and a level of well, a level of maturity of a 5-year-old, or maybe 10-year-old. Maybe I'm too negative. And yeah, and how to stop him and etc. But yeah, but there is also, and that's even, in my opinion, more obvious at the end of season 3 and in season 4. That's not that only obvious; it's almost on the screen. It's clearly a criticism of our society, especially the American society as it is now, that is these fractures. Whatever your affinities and whatever your political party is in the US, it is definitely fractured right now between two sides, and it's clearly the inspiration of season 4. I mean, that's almost too obvious actually to not seeing it, and there's also inspiration of different events of the last few years in American politics, and I like that, to be honest, because I don't know, whatever the message is, whatever you want to take, whatever you want to read in this show, I think it's important actually to again, to do something a bit smart, even if it's just superheroes. It's daring. You have to face criticism, especially nowadays on social media, and it's pretty amazing that although they are using this topic and this very strong inspiration, they don't care, the creators. They go all the way. And again, today, to do that at the edge of immediate reaction on social media and still having great numbers, The Void is still one of the greatest success on Amazon. That's pretty impressive. And finally, then I'll leave James to talk, and you, Jason. Yeah, about the limits that they reach every season. That's my main issue, maybe the only issue that I will show. At first, it was fun to have actually a show that doesn't mind showing blood and sometimes very, let's say something stupid, sex scenes, but kind of, okay, what the hell am I watching? Not definitely not arousing scene. And this season, I think they went, in my opinion, a bit too far. But again, it's only me. I think it became a bit like almost a parody of themselves in some episodes, because there are some scenes, again, not trying to be too spoilers, but some scenes that say, okay, was it really worth it? Did you need actually to show 10 liters of blood in that scene? Or did you really couldn't did you do it another way? Or did you have actually to do some BDSM for 30 minutes in a row? I'm not sure. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, it is a series that is probably, it does actually act as a good satire, i.e., it is satirical on both sides of the political fence, which is its saving grace, honestly. It would take swings at the right and the left, and I guess how the media is now, how we kind of like digest things, and very much, sensationalist news, which is, it's great. So it's good satire on basically, I guess politics, but also media, and which is good. But yeah, I agree. Kind of like there are some very funny. Obviously, you take some scenes to the nth degree with anatomy and how that works, especially if you have some certain superpowers here and there. But the overall arc seems to be. I think we kind of know where it's going. It seems more like a setup for the next season, which will be the last one. But James, do you think it's still the best series, or one of them, the best series on
I
streaming
mean,
right
I've never said that, but I hold it in very high regard. And the fact that they've now announced that season five will be the last series, I think that was quite smart. They announced it halfway through, because there's always a danger with something that has been on for a while that you start thinking, are they retreading, are they replaying? And actually, the fact that we've now maybe only got 8 episodes left to go, the fact that they released 3 in one go, so it's only on for 6 weeks. I think when this ends, we don't know if they'll drop the ball in the final season, but this has the potential to be a really like a classic TV show. I think that hasn't outstayed its welcome
now?
as well. It's always good to leave them wanting more, is the older showbiz mantra, isn't it? And also, just to touch on Gen V, it's great to watch it. Like, it's always great to watch Terminator 1 and Alien 1, but the thing that really impressed me is that you didn't need to watch Gen V. I think that it helps, it adds a little bit, but it's not like if you watch season 5 without watching Gen V, you'd be completely lost. It just feeds into it. That's the good thing, I think, because we've seen in other franchises where it becomes like you have to watch everything or it won't make sense. And that was my concern about Gen V is this now going to be actually like half a boys season and half a Gen V season? But it just sort of helps, and it brings certain things out if you have watched Gen V, and it was a really good series. A friend of mine said that he doesn't watch this for the plot, and that's maybe one of the great things about this, that if you want to watch it just as a bloody splattery show, you can do that, but it's one of the smartest shows on TV, I think, and it doesn't get enough credit for its writing. I love the fact that every episode starts with a recap, and the first recap is just everybody exploding from the last episode and all the extreme stuff. But that isn't a fair representation of it, because it is a very cleverly written show. um I think there were moments of genuine kind of emotion in this series. I won't say what they are, because I think that I'm not sure if Alfonso's watched all of them, but certainly in the last episode there is a guest appearance by quite a famous person in it, and that episode was quite good. Also, some of the villains, who are the superheroes, had interesting arcs. So there were a couple of moments, not with everybody, but that certain people who you would assume are the bad guys, who are starting to maybe waver in this series, and those were really interesting to paint a bit of stuff into that. Swings. So yeah. So when you said about the swings, the satire and stuff, the other thing that you just made me remember, Jason, is the swings at the superhero genre itself. So there's an episode where they're kind of sending up Marvel announcing their phases far into the future at like a Comic-Con style event. And then in the last episode, there's a thing where about them just writing off a film, which seemed to be like for tax purposes,
Yes.
like sort of like a slight at what Warner's have been doing the last couple of years. So I thought that was really good. The extremity element of it's something that always interests me, because I've always gravitated towards stuff that's a little bit politically incorrect, like comedy and very violent films and stuff. But there is a problem with that if that's all what you're doing, is that if you're trying to bust taboos, you do reach a point where you've gone through everything and you can't shock anymore. But I think with this show, because it's so clever, it doesn't really matter too much. There were moments where I thought in this series, particularly the bondage episode goes on a long time, but there was some. It did feel like there was some extreme and darker stuff, but it feels like we're getting towards the end, and maybe that's what we need. And also to see some of Homelander's background was quite interesting. That what the consequences of that abuse have been and stuff like that. But there is a line where Huey says, I don't even. I mean, this is a mild spoiler for the final episode, sorry, but Alfonso, if you want to mute me. But he kind of says, I don't even flinch when I see blood anymore, and that isn't right. And that's kind of built into that. I mean, it's obviously not operating in a world where it's not taking a bit of fun from that gore and stuff. But yeah, I do think this is a great show. I've talked about a lot about superhero fatigue, but I think when you get something as good as this, you go, no, I'm not fatigued. I just want a good story, and I want it to be about something. I don't just want people dressing up and flying, because that on bad green screen, because that doesn't really do anything. And this has really surprising twists. The effects are always fantastic. Like you can't imagine years ago this sort of film would be, this sort of show would be able to keep up with film, because of but so it's been a real joy, and we'll see what the next season comes. I don't think they're filming until next year, but
Yeah, I think
it's not perfect.
I heard it's going to be in Gen V next year, and then only 2026 for season 5.
Yeah, so that kind of makes sense, and maybe we'll get more Gen V spinning off. So yeah, I really enjoy it, and I'm going to miss it. Thursdays aren't going to be the same for 2 years now. What can I say?
And hats off for Anthony Starr. I mean, a bad guy. I never heard of him before this show. Whatever he's going to do after 2026, I mean, all the doors will be open for him. I mean, honestly, and I try to think after watching the last episode of any other TV show where I had a villain scaring me so much. I'm not even joking. And I can't think of one.
One of the best screen villains of all time, I think, already. And it'll be interesting
every time
to see
he's on screen, I'm thinking that guy has the power of just doing this, and he kills everyone in the room. And that's it. And again, and even if you upset him for just, I don't know, just taking his drink or drinking his drink, it gets crazy. I mean, it is amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah, he has been in a few series here and there beforehand, but this is definitely after this. It's just a long shadow to come out from under going on, but it is he kind of makes that show. And the fact that he's on the screen for how many hours now, considering, and you just fascinated and horrified for that whole period is quite a bit trade to the writing and performance, quite honestly. But yes, I'm actually can't think of a show where you are so looking forward to the end because you want to see how it ends. So we're on 2026. Next, a film that I think James rather enjoyed. That was Fly Me to the Moon. James?
Yeah, or Fly Me Past the Moon, or Fly Me Head First into the Moon, whichever takes your preference.
So this is I assume something to do with the space program and
the trailer for this made it look like it might have something interesting, that it's sort of to do with the Apollo, the first mission to the moon, and the trailer makes it out that the kind of premise is sort of keeping its feet in both, like trying to keep both sides of this debate happy. There are conspiracy theorists who think we never went to the moon, who are wrong, and there's people who think we went to the moon, who are right. And the kind of idea of this is, oh no, actually the moon landing footage may have been faked because they couldn't get a camera up there to do it, so we're going to do a backup version on Earth that we need to film, and then they're actually going to go to the moon. And you've got Channing Tatum in there, and Scarlett Johansson. There's also a rom-commy element with it, and the guy from Everybody Loves Raymond as well, Ray Romano. It was nice to see him. But it just felt like a film. It comes up Apple TV at the start, which I wasn't aware of. I was like, oh, that wasn't a good sign to start with. And this just feels like a streaming film that is kind of made to fill the time. It's like nearly 2.5 hours, and actually, the idea some people have really taken against this because they just sort of think you can't even question did we go to the moon and all that stuff. I think I would have preferred this if this was a full-on nutty conspiracy theorist film about the whole thing was faked, or that it was a smart satire, had some bite to it about. There's the trailer that ends with a line of her saying, "Oh, we should have got Kubrick," and you think, "Oh, this could be like quite punchy," and it just feels so unfocused. The romantic element of it doesn't really work either. Um, Scarlett Johansson's brilliant, and I usually like Channing Tatum, but they don't seem to have like the chemistry together. And you end up going, if this was one thing, if it was a satire, or if it was funny or subversive, or a film about the moon landing, or a romantic comedy, I would go, okay, it's that. But it's not. It wants to be all of those things. It ends up being none, and it was just so boring and so pedestrian that I resented every second that I spent in the cinema. But if other opinions are available, check it out when it comes to streaming. I'm sure I'm wrong about it, but I just felt it didn't know what it wanted to be, and it just felt like it was made to fill up the time. And there'll be people that are just interested in the moon landing who will pull it on and not really watch it, I think. But yeah, I didn't like it.
Fair enough. Well, next we have a sequel.
But usually I'm quite positive, Jason. So we'll get on to the next film and see what happens, shall we?
Is it worse than Moonfall?
I
haven't seen that, but I reckon Moonfall's
You
fun.
still haven't seen Moonfall.
Moonfall's meant to be fun, though. This isn't even fun. This is the thing. This is why I think Batman. I would rather watch Batman and Robin than Batman Forever, because Batman Forever is just boring. Whereas at least Batman and Robin is so bad it's good. Like, and Fly Me to the Moon is just sort of like a bit nothing, in my opinion.
Well, no, Moonfall is full on conspiracy and disaster movie all in one. I'd also recommend maybe an older title, Capricorn One, and that's basically a premise of faked a mission to Mars, and then what happens to trying to cover it up. Much more of a 70s political thriller, and I suppose not quite sci-fi, but definitely a political thriller. So there's good alternatives out there.
They sound good. I don't like being negative. So let's get on to another film.
Let's get on
to say something good.
That you can be positive on. So next.
What's next?
What's next?
You're joking, right? Okay.
Just when you thought it was safe to go outside, a sequel to the original, I think 1996 film.
Not a sequel.
Dance the Box.
It's not a sequel.
I'm afraid it says Twisters. It must be a sequel to Twister, unless the plot is radically different. But educate me, Richard and James. Tell me about this incredible sequel.
Interesting.
Or non-sequel.
We have two different opinions, I believe, on this movie. That's interesting, at least. That's the only thing interesting. I'm joking. So again, I don't think that either myself or the director consider this movie to be a sequel, to be honest. Because the thing is, there is absolutely, I think, except for the tornadoes, obviously, there is no real link between the two movies. I only watched the Twister movie with Bill Paxton back in the day. I haven't rewatched it for this one, obviously. But it's extremely similar. So it could be a reboot, could be a spiritual sequel, whatever you want to call it. And it's exactly the same pattern. You don't expect more from a blockbuster. It's people chasing tornadoes. And that's it. And it's two groups of people chasing tornadoes. I don't know if in the first movie it was like that.
Yes.
The first group, there were two groups in the first movie?
No. Well, it was 3 people chasing a tornado.
I mean, almost a competition.
Well, that's a twist.
There were definitely less characters. There were definitely less characters in the 1996
because
film.
In this one, there is some kind of competition between the team of Glenn Powell, where they are like the stereotype. I don't know if it's the right word, rednecks, but no, I mean like stereotype cowboy tornado chasers. Let's call them this way. And the other ones, at first, but there is a twist. At first, it's made of kind of scientists of everywhere, NASA, and everywhere, and including the main character played by someone, but I don't remember the name out of my head, Daisy something. And she, just like the first movie, she has a first scene, like a prologue scene, where she went through a traumatic experience where all the friends died. Sorry, it's just first 5 minutes. Huh? And then they switch to 5 years later, and the movie restarts. And she's so part of this scientist team because she wants to find a way to stop the tornadoes forever. And Glenn Powell on the other end team at first see that actually they just want fame and because they have a YouTube channel, etc. So that's what the competition is. But there is some twists because the first you don't have exactly, yeah. There is more that meets the eye. That's the right expression. Anyway, and all these characters, they have layers. I'm joking, but I'm exaggerating. It is a blockbuster, obviously. Don't expect much. Still, there is some kind of subtext at some point, I think, more than the first movie. I don't remember actually there was some social subtext in the first movie, and I like that. And again, I took it for what it was. I thought in the movie theater it looked extremely well. I thought the actors were doing their job as they must have to do the job. I mean, they not like they're going to make an Oscar. There's no Oscar worthy performance, but all right. And that's why I had a nice moment. For some reason, as I said, and I finished on this, for some reason, some people did started a round of applause at the end of the movie in a movie theater. I have no idea why, but I was thinking this movie is successful. Then I look at the numbers and it is successful. And I say, okay, maybe there is something here that I don't. I mean, I enjoyed it. I would not start clapping, but I enjoyed it. Well, I don't know why they clapped. Anyway, so that's my point of view.
James?
So I actually had, I mean, I do remember the original, but all I can sort of remember is the bit where the cow is swept up in the thing, and obviously Bill Paxton, big fan of him from his other work. And actually, when the first trailer dropped, I thought, do we need this? And I thought, actually, I think it was something Alfonso said in the chat. I thought quite high expectations for this because there's not really anything else like that, like a big weathery film other than maybe like Geostorm or something. And maybe the spectacle of this will be enough to sort of carry it. Really love Daisy Edgar Jones for Normal People, and Glenn Powell actually really enjoyed in Hitman recently, which is on Netflix, and Anyone But You, and he's in Top Gun Maverick and things. And the opening of this is absolutely spectacular. So it kind of opens with Edgar Jones going out with a team and then encountering a tornado, and it sort of disaster strikes and various members of her team are killed in that, and it's a really strong opening. And then you sort of it flashes forward 5 years. You've got she's sort of got a bit of survivor guilt, I suppose. And I was like this, and then it is a bit like Aliens, where another film where they've thrown an S on the end, where they're saying, look, we want to go back out there because we want to try and stop these things happening to people and communities. So it's a really strong start. But I think then the thing that just really rubbed me up the wrong way is you get about an hour of, there's like 30 nameless 2D characters just like driving and shouting woo into their cameras for their vlogs to live stream. And it's like, I was sat there thinking, is this because these people are all cannon fodder or tornado fodder for later? They're just being set up so we sort of know who they are and they're going to get killed. Most of them sort of survive. So you go, why is it necessary for them to be 30 people? There's a ridiculous English character who's like, he's stepped out of 4 weddings and a funeral or something. Like nobody speaks like that in England. And it's just that kind of rubbed me up the wrong way. And then by the time you get to the second hour with Powell and Edgar Jones together, that should have worked, but I just sort of didn't care by that point. But as a spectacle, I was a bit underwhelmed as well, because it feels like the set pieces are only about 10 minutes of the 2-hour runtime. You've got a really strong opening one. You've got a tornado about an hour in, which is like 3 minutes, but it's very good, but it's 3 minutes. and then you've got like a 5 minute bit at the end or 5-10 minute bit at the end. And don't know. I think that's the problem. Is like, do tornadoes really lend themselves to films because they just destroy everything in seconds? So, like, I never thought I'd say this, but I think Michael Bay would have done this film better because it would have
No,
been a 3.5 hour tornado with a rock and a load of transformers going round in a circle, and you'd have gone, yeah, that's great.
I see for your last point. Everything else, I kind of agree. But what I mean about the theatrical experience is worth it is because it's not only CGI, etc. It's true, but I have to give the credit to the director. In my opinion, the scenes where there is like disaster because of the tornadoes, they manage to focus on the point of view from the human beings, and through their eyes, you can see how scary they are, the tornadoes, but not focusing on tornadoes themselves. I'm not sure if I make myself clear. And the one, there is a scene in some kind of, next to a motel in a kind of a swimming pool or parking lot or whatever. And then another one later on in a movie theater. I've had these two scenes from the point of view of human beings. They were really well done, actually. Really well directed, to be honest.
I can't fault those scenes, but there's such a short runtime. There's such a short part of the runtime that I wouldn't. I think I would have preferred watching this on movie clips. I think that's my issue, is that I wanted the other stuff to work, and the first hour I found almost like unbearable because I was like, this is just people sort of shouting into cameras, and I don't know who these people are. But I'm clearly in the minority of this. You're right; those scenes are done from the human's perspective, and the one in the middle at the sort of rodeo is really good. But again, I felt as soon as it started, it's over, and that's probably realistic. But I don't know. I sort of want to rewatch the first one now to see if I felt the same way because I really don't remember much about it. But it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, stormy opinion there, but okay, worth checking out then, you think? Because the original one is also very good as well. As you say, Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt, it's good character actors, both of them. So hopefully this one's not too bad either, from what I gather, anyway. But anyway, next, another sequel, and we know it's a sequel because it's got 2 in the title, is Inside Out 2. So, Alfonso, you saw this.
Yes.
Richard. So, Alfonso, what did you make of Inside Out 2? It's good word of mouth about this, and some good box office from this week.
Yeah. It seems like people really want their psychology animated. It is something that is kind of new in terms of children's films. So people care more about psychology. I think also the pandemic and all how it has, let's say, brought to light the necessities or the needs of psychology therapy for everyone. Now made everyone talk about having a psychologist, and psychology has become a very popular topic for everyone. And I think people also want kids to know more about psychology. I think one of the most interesting aspects of these films is that they teach kids how to express, how to understand what is happening inside their head in a simple yet interesting way. I thought this was a nice progression, and I was a little bit frustrated that when like Riley is growing up, and you think like, oh, she's going to become a teenager now. A new emotion will be love or something like that. But it's anxiety, which is much more real. This anxiety tries to do her best to actually protect Riley as it does with everyone else. But the best intentions don't always lead to the best results, and it's really interesting to see how the protagonist here now is yeah, it's anxiety trying to uh, make things better, but but things don't turn out very well, so she spirals. And at some point I thought Riley was gonna have a full mental breakdown, like she was gonna have a mental issue for scared or something, because it was like too much anxiety. It was at some point she seemed really having a very bad time, and it seems like everything in her head was spiraling. But it was interesting, and it made even that be more accessible to children, that sometimes your head is not in the right place at all. But yeah, at some point there's something happens, and I thought, like, this girl is gonna be left with some kind of mental illness here. But what you see what is happening inside, and suddenly is everything is well. Anyway, I want to give spoilers, because that's interesting, because like there are two plots. There is the outside plot and the inside plot in Riley's head. So yeah, I thought it is good. When I here in my city, I when I go to work, I pass by school, and they had this poster with the characters of Inside Out 2, and it was like Emotion Day, Emotion Fest, a day to celebrate your emotions, and this is for little kids. So I thought that kind of more like awareness raising of the kind of things that go into the kids' head. That's very interesting. I thought that didn't happen before with other generations. So I think it's good for this film to do this.
Richard, you found it as enjoyable and as deep as Alfonso there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's nothing much more I can add because it's true actually. What Alfonso has said. I really respect the guys who have the idea of Inside Out in the first place, and how they write. I don't know if it's the same team. I'm guessing the same team behind Inside Out and Inside Out 2. But I think that it's nice to have something that is well written and it's aimed at technically at kids and teenagers. I think it's really important not to just give them actually dumb cartoons, dumb animated movies. And no, it's I think it's might surprise you, but yeah, I kind of agree. It might actually help because it shows actually they exaggerate obviously through the emotions in her heads, but they must actually show actually important stuff for kids growing up, and how to handle especially actually new emotions when you reach puberty and things like that. So no, it's funny, but said it's very emotional as well. These two movies, and it's the right balance between the two. Although I think I'm trying to think if I enjoyed more the first one, perhaps it's because of how new it was actually the concept of showing the emotions in the mind. But still, I really enjoyed the second one as well. Yeah. Well, in this one, unfortunately, there is not the imaginary friend. For the ones who have seen Inside Out, the first one, the imaginary friend was my favorite character, and he's not in this one, obviously. And so it's spoiler alert. So it's not a spoiler for Inside Out 2, but spoiler alert for Inside Out 1. When the imaginary friends disappear forever, I cried like a baby. Anyway, but it was a beautiful scene, and it's still a beautiful scene if you find it on YouTube. But yeah, no, it's a very smart movie. Now, obviously, it is already, and it's gonna be in the next few hours, or it's already the biggest box office, biggest box office of all time in animation, I think, which is crazy. I think it went over Frozen 2, and obviously there will be an Inside Out 3. It's not like actually I know some people, but it's just that you don't have to be like a rocket scientist to realize actually that there will be some sequel coming on. And yeah, that's the debatable part. But I think we discussed that on the chat one someday. How is going to be the next one? That's the question mark for me, because I was thinking that perhaps there would be some first love for Riley in this one, because obviously she's an early teenager. She's like 13, 14 years old. They decided not to go on this road with this path. Okay, fair enough. But the next one will have actually to address, I'm guessing, the early age of sexuality. So are they going to, as the creators, are they going to handle something like that without losing their original audience? Like technically, if there were kids, there were families going to this movie. So it's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it must be actually some kind of challenge as she's growing up. How are they going to not lose some part of their audience? But
And on top of that, some people were speculating by looking. I mean, the trailer gave the idea maybe that Riley had some infatuation for the captain of the team, of the hockey team. So if she has some same-sex sexual orientation,
really?
that would be on top of that.
Okay. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, but I'm guessing they already are working on it. To be honest, yeah.
Fair enough. Right. Well, next, a film, I guess, to do with the mind and maybe our recollections is from memory. I think this was internally recommended by our own group here to other members, but James and Richard. James, you saw this, and then Richard, you saw this also on a recommendation.
Richard recommended it to me, so yeah.
So, what is the premise of Memory, Richard?
So surprisingly, this movie has spoilers, so I'm going to be very careful what I'm going to say. So it's the story of so the main character is played by Jessica Chastain, who is a woman actually raising a child by herself. The child is a teenager who is 15 years old in a big city. I don't know if it's New York, but in a big city. You understand quite quickly that she's depressed and she doesn't have much of a social life. And it's like a choice, to be honest. She's kind of tried to isolate herself from everyone. She goes to a reunion, some kind of high school reunion. But this is only the premises, not the beginning of the movie. Huh? An high school reunion. She doesn't fit in. She's not very happy about being there because, as I said, she feels not comfortable with other people. So she leaves the high school reunion quite quickly, but she's followed by a guy who at first looks like a creep, to be honest, because he follows her. He doesn't say anything. She tries actually to almost try to run away, but discreetly. He follows her all the way to her house, so she goes, but not inside. He just stands there in front of the building all night long. I'm trying to see what I can say. And then, well, yeah, and you can see that that guy is not right in his mind. He has issues, like mental issues. And yeah, and she's a nice girl because the day after, because he slept on the street in front of the house or of the building. In the next day, she finds, I think, in his wallet, whatever, like the address or the phone number of his brother, and because he has mental issues and he must have escaped actually the house he was living with his brother. So she brings him, this guy. She's very nice, and she brings this guy who was supposed to be creepy to her brother's where he lives. She understands that. She finds out what issues he has. They start to spend some time together because the brother looked for someone to help him helping his brother, and she is actually some kind of nurse, so she works in the social industry, whatever. So in bottom line, Jessica Chastain and this guy who is played by one of the Skarsgård guys.
Peter Skarsgård.
Peter Skarsgård, sorry. They spend time together, and they find out that actually, or she finds out that they have a past, a traumatizing past. And at first, you would think actually that she has all the reason to hate this guy, and actually, this is not how it goes. And I'm gonna stop here. What do you think, James? Was it a good pitch without giving too much away? I think I did a good job.
Yeah, I think you did. I mean, the trailer. So I always sort of think, what does the trailer reveal? So the trailer sort of reveals that he seems to have early onset dementia. That seems to be what's going on from the trailer. So he's around her age because they've been to school together, like you say. But there is an interesting subplot to do with maybe her, and I'm deliberately being vague on this, but maybe to do with her memory of what's happened with regards to him. So it's a film that a little bit like Room, not The Room, but Room with Brie Larson, that it deals with quite traumatic themes, but it doesn't feel like as traumatic as a watch as it could be. Like even as it was getting towards the end, I was like, is this gonna like am I gonna need counselling by the end of this film? Because is it gonna end in a really horrible place? And they choose to sort of it doesn't feel like a definitive end, it will go on, but that they kind of leave it in a place where it kind of feels quite sort of upbeat. I don't know what happens next, but the whole film, I mean, the thing that it's very well written, plotted, and directed, but I think Jessica Chastain is she's always great in stuff, but she's just phenomenal in this. It's such a good performance.
Extraordinary.
Without going into what her past is.
Literally extraordinary performance.
And Peter Sarsgaard
I rarely
as well.
seen something like that. Seriously.
Yeah. And I think if it wasn't for them, I don't even know if we'd be talking about it on this podcast because you watch it and go, oh, it's fine. But you completely believe that them. As well, I mean, no, I won't say that because that's maybe a little bit spoilery. But it's just a very good sort of slice of life film. I think very, very interesting stuff and very well acted. And thank you for recommending it because it would have probably gone over my head otherwise.
We are in July, and I said it. It is currently the best thing I've seen on big screen and small screen combined, and by far. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 months, but I wouldn't be surprised if I put it on my #1 list. Honestly, it's an extraordinary movie. When you know so little about it, and I think you know so little after what I said and what James said, it's even better. It's well written, but as I said, it's kind of traumatizing even for the audience because, again, I have to choose my words carefully here. But how it is written, you feel, or I felt, after watching the movie or the last 20 minutes and after the movie, I felt, in a way, some kind of guilt. And honestly, and all my way home to the train, etc., to go home, etc., as usual, I couldn't shake it off. I was feeling extremely almost guilty, and I think it was done on purpose. And I was thinking, this is amazing what this movie has done, and there are some powerful scenes that I will be rewatching in 10, 20, 30 years in this movie again on YouTube probably, because the performance, Peter Sarsgaard is doing a good job, but Jessica Chastain, if she doesn't get an Oscar nomination for this movie, I don't understand movies at all, because that's crazy. She was amazing in Zero Dark 30. She didn't get an Oscar. Okay, that was the first mistake. But this performance is one of the most extraordinary performances I have ever seen from someone. Girls, guys, whatever.
I am getting all the now. I want to see it right now.
Honestly, I hope I give you the will, the you want to see it. Honestly, it was so good. It was really good.
Another two-hander of Jessica Chastain with Oscar Isaac is Scenes from a Marriage. If you haven't watched that, that's another one of those taken like those heavy on dialogue and very big act scenes for acting.
I haven't seen it because I think both of them were in something I've seen, but it was not bad. They were together in a movie by the guy from Margin Call, but it's not bad.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was a
This is different. This
dangerous
is
year or something like that, but it's not bad.
Scenes from a Marriage is a miniseries, an HBO
Okay, that's
miniseries
not it. Okay.
shot during COVID, and they
Uh-huh.
actually show you a little bit about that.
I'm not saying that her filmography is perfect. She's done terrible stuff, but Zero Dark 30, she was on screen all the time, and she was crazy good. In this one, she is also on screen all the time, and honestly, it was really great.
It reminded me of Scenes of a Marriage because that's two characters,
Mhm.
4 episodes or so.
Okay, cool. I'm going to watch it. Yeah.
Right. Next, I think another quite recommended title from our group is Kinds of Kindness. Alfonso, James, you saw this. Just give us a quick idea of what this is about and then tell us what you think about it.
Well, it is the latest films of Yorgos Lanthimos, with Emma Stone, after Poor Things, that won her the Oscar for Best Actress. And this also has DC Plemons, Margaret Qualley, who else? Other characters that are in the 3 stories, and it's 3 stories. And I would say what they have in common is that, well, they are set in present time and in America. And also William Dafoe. It's also in the 3 of them. Hong Chow. And I think the 3 of them have to do with people who submit to other people's wills. And if you buy that, that can be done easily, maybe for different reasons, but that they are willing to do it. They want to do it, and sometimes they even cannot live without doing it, without being controlled by others. It made me, same as Richard said that with the memory he felt kind of guilty. It made me feel at times like, oh, I wish I didn't have to decide so many things in my daily life. I wish there was somebody there to take control and tell me what to do and what to wear and who to marry and who to... Because it's a little bit like that. It's a little bit like people that are so willing to let other people take control of their lives. And it takes it to far places. So you really have to be okay with that kind of mentality. With the three stories, they are different. The second one I didn't catch. I think was important, and somebody told me about it after we watched the movie. You didn't catch this? Oh yeah. Anyway, so I thought, to me, the first story was the best one, then the third one, then the middle one. It's a long movie. I think it's short story. It's not so short. It's like 45 minutes, and it's nice to see the same actors do different characters, play in different parts, and I don't know. It has a little bit like a cool vibe. It's I would say it's a cool film. Like, it makes you feel like, in a sense, like, oh, I am with because like they are actors who are now very much in demand. They like to work with this kind of directors that are a little bit risky, but at the same time, other people who watched the film with me were like, "What a piece of shit! This is the worst movie I have ever seen." So,
Yeah.
but I was more in the, I liked it. No, I didn't adore it, but I liked it.
Fine. James, you saw this? Which camp did you fall in then? It's quite interesting.
Firmly in the I'm with Alfonso on this. I mean, I liked it even more than you, probably, Alfonso. I think this will be in my top 10 favorite films of the year. And I'm sure Poor Things is technically better. It's very difficult to split them. It feels like we're completely spoilt having two Yorgos Lanthimos films in a year. Although this was shot before Poor Things, apparently. I mean, they're both weird because they're both him, but this one is weird in a different way. I mean, I sort of said it was a bit like Pulp Fiction, but like a sort of Pulp Fiction crossed with Twin Peaks or something. Like it sort of feels like a bit of a waking dream. And you've got these three stories like Pulp Fiction that are well, actually they're not connected at all, really, because in Pulp Fiction, obviously you get a little overlap of characters, but here you have all the actors appear in each three stories, but playing completely different characters, and you know that the section's finished because it comes up with a cast list, and then you move on to the next bit. So it's the first one is called BMF is flying, and then maybe BMF is lying, and then the last one's called BMF eats a sandwich. And you'll see who BMF is when the film starts. But they are. I've not really thought too much about how they're connected. The first two seem very similar, and then the third one seems slightly different. So the first one is to do with a guy played by Jesse Plemons, and he's sort of the main character in each one, really, isn't he? So he's he is reporting into Willem Dafoe, who is his boss, who wants him to do more and more extreme things. Um, we'll just put it that way, I think. He seems very controlling, and when he starts to refuse, Willem Dafoe sort of rejects him in a sort of weird way. The second one involves starts and he's married to Emma Stone in this one, so she's in the first story as a lesser role, but in the second one she's gone missing, but then she comes back. But he says, "This can't be my wife because her shoes don't fit." That's genuinely what the story is, and her shoes don't fit. And he's like, "She's a fake. She's not who she says she is." And it's very vague as to where she's been. She seems to have been on like a desert island, but it's not. Nothing's put down. And then the third one opens with Emma Stone as a doctor trying to sort of use a volunteer to bring someone back from the dead in a morgue. So they're really odd stories. But yeah, I really sort of like them. I think it's really well shot. It just looks great, and it's got that kind of vibe of Pulp Fiction. That I remember watching Pulp Fiction for the first time, assuming it would be an action film, and I'd never really watched a film where there wasn't an explosion. I was like, "Oh, this is actually quite enjoyable," because it's just quite. I think it is funny as well. Like people started laughing at bits, and I did as well because it's got that very like in The Lobster, where people talk in this really odd way that you think this must be a dream because people wouldn't really say this in real life. And apparently the original cut of this had all the three stories intertwined, which would have been impossible to follow. Because if you're watching Jesse Plemons play one character in one scene, then another character in another, and then it wouldn't make any sense. But yeah, I mean, everybody wants to be Peter Sellers in Doctor Strangelove in this film. I think everybody was like trying to play a very different character in each one. But it's really good. The only thing I saw it twice. I would like to see it a third time and do something really weird in the cinema to throw the audience. I thought maybe if I sat down the front with a dog's head on, a big paper mache dog's head, but nobody knew I was there. And then in the middle, when they mentioned dogs, just get up and start dancing through the cinema. I don't think anyone would pay any attention because the film is so weird that people would just go, "Oh, that's just what happens." But there is a line in it where Emma I've forgotten her name already.
Stone.
Emma Stone. I was going to say the name of someone someone else, I think. Yeah, Emma Stone says something like, it's better to eat chocolate in the morning." What's the line? It's something like, "It's better to eat chocolate than it is to depend on something that runs out," or something like that. And that maybe is what you're saying about like the relationship thing. Like everybody seems to be in a really unhealthy relationship in this film. And I think maybe that's what it's about. Maybe it's just quite weird. Like there's not really a plot that I can explain about it. It's just really weird. And if you like weird stuff. And also a load of people got up and there's a really odd mid-credit section. You know, the mid-credit sequence is usually something where you go, oh my god, this leads into this, or this is the next part of this is the next MCU film. There's something so random that happens in the middle of the credits that you just go, I don't even that's in there. But I enjoy it.
think it has a meaning if it's what I think it is.
Okay. I might DM Richard about why he felt guilty about memory later, and I might DM you about Kinds of Kindness. But I really liked it. I think at home actually you might be able to watch it as three separate things, because I think the first time I watched it, even on the third one, my concentration started to go a bit in the third one, because like I've sat through two stories now, and this is a completely different thing. But I did really enjoy it, and the soundtrack's really good as well. It's got a really wonderful discordant score, which is really unsettling. So I did like this.
Well, I didn't enjoy particularly those piano like bang, bang, very much like Poor Things, like bang.
I think it fits the film though, because it just feels so uneasy. There is a I don't want to spoil any moments from it really. There is a moment where they when Emma Stone in the second story has gone missing, and he says to his friends, "Can we watch one of like some old footage of her just to remind ourselves?" That bit got a huge laugh from the audience, and because it was not what you expect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, thanks. Quite intriguing film, actually. Quite a short story. It was Pulp Fiction, as you say, that we don't really get enough of those. Really, there's kind of like very kind of quartet of small stories in the feature. Next, I think what was described as the bloodiest Bollywood film produced. I think it's Kill, which seems quite a straightforward premise. Looks like a John Wick meets, I say, Indian cinema. James, you saw this.
Yeah.
What? Well, dare I ask what the plot is, and did you enjoy it?
So the plot is there's an army commando, and he's found that the love of his life is on a train. She's in an arranged marriage, and he goes to kind of stop her. And when he gets on the train, there's a load of thieves and wrong-uns, and he sorts them out. That is the plot. And I've got to say, I like that. I like the fact that, like John Wick 1, it's bloke kill my dog, and I'm going to mess them up. You don't need to follow this, right? Vengeance films, you don't need loads of subplot. You don't need loads of this and that. That is the plot. There's people stealing on this train, and he's an army commando, and he sorts them out, basically. And you've got some spectacular fight scenes in a very claustrophobic environment. And some very shocking sort of moments, as well as the characters are all really well drawn, I think. But in the sense that enough is done that you know who they are. It's not like in Twisters, they just shout woo into a camera for a live stream. They've kind of got very good casting that you kind of go, okay, that guy's the heavy, that guy's the brains of this villainous thing. And it's just really spectacular. And it does live up to the sort of bloodiness. It's very gory in places. So it's an 18 in the UK. But yeah, it sort of feels like The Raid meets Train to Busan. Like it's that kind of thing. So, and it's probably only 1 hour 50 as well. It certainly felt like it. So if you like a film like that, these are really good films as well too. The Raid was always a really good one to recommend to people who would sort of look at you like, oh, I don't want to watch subtitled films. There's some people who you recommend them a horror and they go, oh, subtitle, I don't watch subtitled films. And I would explain, look, The Raid, you only need to read 5 minutes of subtitles at the start, and then it's all visual storytelling and fighting, and it's brilliant. And this really delivers. It's probably it's one of the action films of the year. I think that I know people laugh about this, but the Beekeeper is quite fun. If you that's on streaming now with Jason Statham. It's silly, but it's sort of a little bit better than it needs to be. Monkey Man was fine. It didn't sort of. I wanted to enjoy it more than I did. I think it's quite good, but I felt there was a lot of plot and stuff in there, and it was fine. It was fine. But this, And the Fall Guy as well was another really good action film, but in a different way, that it was very big budget, very big spectacle. But the fact that these are really tightly choreographed and violent fights on a train, and it's just sort of um, that. I mean, you either like that or you don't. But if you like that, this will be right up your street. So yeah, it's called Kill, and I think it's still in cinemas, but definitely check it out on streaming.
Okay, well, Kill, as the tagline goes, the journey is one way. Make sure you get your make sure you get your tickets for that journey.
It's on the Wikipedia page. I didn't make it up. It made me laugh. It's on Wikipedia page. It says this journey is one way.
Yeah, I was
That's
thinking,
brilliant.
oh no, well, okay, hey, I'm glad it actually does something, it sticks to what it does, and then it's done it well. So it's kind of a bit off the beaten track, pardon the pun, for an Indian cinema, but hey, if it works, it works. Good, good. Right, next, another kind of film that you saw, James, was it seems from the trailer, it looks like a Silence of the Lambs meets, well, Silence of the Lambs, really. It's like an FBI supernatural thriller, Long Legs. Is there more to that than the trailer? And what's it? What's the premise?
Yeah, so Long Legs, directed by Osgood Perkins, who is related to Anthony Perkins, I think, of Psycho fame.
Okay.
So that's quite a good selling point. Although I didn't realise that when I watched the film, and I think it's A24 as well, who've got quite a good record. It's been a really good year for horror films, and this is a horror, but I would say it's maybe better described as a supernatural crime thriller. I think might be a better way of describing it. So it opens with, it looks really great, and it's got like this sort of 70s aesthetic to it. Like some of the screen is like in the old sort of square frame, and there's like the soundtrack is all very 70s. And it opens up with a girl who's sort of approached by this odd stranger, played by Nicolas Cage, but you don't really see him. And it's not like he's obscured in darkness, but the camera sort of refuses to show anything below his chin. But you can see he's an odd looking character. And he certainly doesn't sound like Nicolas Cage as well. It's a very good performance from him. But he sort of approaches her in the 70s, and it's just very, very creepy. And then it flashes forward to, must be in the 90s, when she's grown up working for the FBI, and she's investigating all these murders. But these murders, the person who they think has committed them doesn't seem to have been in the area, and there seems to be maybe more of a supernatural element involved, and it sort of goes from there. It's not, I mean, so just talking about Kill, which was obviously a very gory film. This isn't. Well, actually, I've just thought there's one scene that is very gory, but it's not like it's full of jump scares or gory violence all the way through. It's more sort of eerie. It's got sort of like a sense of something's going to go wrong, a bit like the Babadook or something. That kind of feeling of dread, or like maybe the original Halloween. That kind of vibe to it. And that you're not really sure what's going on, but it's also got sort of like little moments of comedy in it that are sort of to do with maybe what we expect from horror films. Like there's certain moments where you sort of think, I know what's coming because of this, and it got sort of like guilty titters in the audience of the cinema that I saw it at. So people were laughing at little bits, but no, it didn't feel like they were laughing at the film. They were sort of laughing with the film. So it was good. It did feel, for me personally, though, I felt like I was admiring it more than enjoying it. I think there's been some really good horrors this year. So we've had like Immaculate and Abigail. The First Omen was surprisingly good. Last Night with the Devil was really good, which is probably the closest to any of these films. This is really good as well, and it feels quite unique. So those are all very different horror films, I'd say, as well. But yeah, it's definitely, and I think it's been quite successful. So it's definitely one of the most successful sort of original movies of the year. But yeah, it is more like a crime thriller, but with a horror overtones, I would say. So that's called Long Legs.
Brilliant. Okay.
And the actress is from It Follows, which is a film from about 10 years ago, which is
yeah,
quite a good
that's
film.
quite good.
Maker Monroe. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, that's quite very sensible. And yeah, I mean these genres always do good with their budget and kind of like box office. They're not hugely expensive, but they can, the word of mouth, it tends to do well for these movies, and it does its own advertising and such.
She
And
was
if you want
also
Nicolas Cage doing a like an unhinged performance, then this ticks that box as well. So it's weird because the trailer, he is in the trailer, but so obscure. There's a moment where he has his hands over his face in a very fleeting shot. Um, but when the film come up saying Maker Monroe and Nicolas Cage, it's like, oh, is he in that? Because I didn't see him in the trailer. But maybe that's one of the things that has drawn people to it as well, because he's obviously a bit of an actor that people, not on the level of Schwarzenegger and Stallone in the 80s, but I think Nicolas Cage has got a bit of a fan base, hasn't he, of people that will turn out to see him. So yeah.
I mean, you kind of really don't know sometimes. It depends on what month it is. Is it going to be a very quirky, serious performance, or is it going to be one of those over top ones or fun ones? But it's always a watchable, like one of those last character actor, but become film stars. I mean, proper film stars, but very watchable. So you can never underestimate the Cage when he's popping up. It's usually in every other film, quite honestly. But
I rewatched Snake Eyes this weekend, and he was decent in it.
yeah, he always is. Right, next, another series that kind of reached its conclusion, and that was Disney's Star Wars: The Acolyte. This was basically kind of a prequel to the Star Wars era, or certainly the original one. And Richard, you saw this. Where Star Wars is now at this point.
So yeah, let's start with a neutral comment. Let's start with the premises. What is the Acolyte? The Acolyte is obviously a Star Wars show set 100 years before A Phantom Menace. So it's the first. Is it the first? Yeah, it's the first TV show / movie set not set during the Skywalker era. Let's call it this way. It's set during the High Republic, which is a time when the Jedi were all powerful and there was no Sith threat. Since actually in Phantom Menace, it is said that the Sith were not around for 1,000 years or something like that. I don't know, but a long time anyway. I think it's 1,000 years. So yeah, and the movie. Actually interesting, but I said movie instead of TV show, and you'll see why. The TV show starts with the most famous actor or actress of this TV show, Carrie-Anne Moss from The Matrix,
Yes.
who is on the planet investigating, like, I don't know, some Force user, I think, and she's attacked by this Force user, and she dies. Sorry for the spoiler. After 5 minutes, so it's not a real spoiler, by the way. It's only the first 5 minutes of the show. And so it kind of starts a chain of reaction, because obviously the Jedi Council is not the Jedi Council, actually. The closest friends within the Jedi Council of Carrie-Anne Moss' character are concerned about some kind of Force user who has killed a Jedi. And that's not common, obviously, in this era. And it becomes this TV show becomes some kind of investigation at first on who is the killer. That would have been fun, but it was not the point of this show in the end, unfortunately, because the main characters are not the Jedi's, the 3 or 4 Jedi's who are investigating this murder, but it's actually the murderer herself, who is the main character. So it's May, the murderer.
Yeah.
And she is actually one of 2 twin sisters who are very strong in the Force. And 16 years earlier, I don't know, should we go all the way? I mean,
Yes.
we don't care about the spoilers. So,
No.
okay. So 16 years before the show, when they were very young. They were like 5, 6 years old, and they must be in their 20s in the beginning of the show. When they were 5 or 6 years old, they were born and raised in a coven of witches, not from Datomir, another one. I don't know why, but it's another one. Why use things that already exist? Let's try to create new stuff. Yeah, good idea. Another comment of witches who have also some magical powers, and apparently these witches are so strong, but they are not force users, but they created life and they created these twin sisters. Okay, and they created these twin sisters, and for some reason that is never explained, it's like, if I understand correctly, it's like they created one soul, but they divided in two bodies.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's never explained why they did that. But anyway, and so in a way, for some reason, also for this explains one way or another. So May becomes this. She goes on the dark path. That's to sum it up, a dark path, and she's found by some kind of a Sith, who is called Kimir, and she becomes some kind of his acolyte. Acolyte being the Padawan of the Sith. And on the other side, you have the other twin, Osha, or Oshe, whatever, and she starts to become first trained as a Jedi, but then actually she's not, because she has so much, I don't know, anger or sadness in her heart because the witches died and her mother died or whatever. So then she just give up on the training as a Jedi, and she just have a normal life until now, back in the present, when they are investigating this murder of Carrie Moss, and they are looking for Osha, thinking that it's her, because apparently only 2 people in the whole Jedi world knew about the existence of the twins. And anyway, and now this Osha girl becomes like a key element in this investigation to find May, so she can answer for a crime, and also finding who is her master. That's kind of how I would sum it up. But there is a lot of things hidden in the past of the characters. So many things. No, I'm joking. Actually, it's not many things actually hidden in the past, because this could have been summed up in one episode, and I don't know. But and that's my problem, and that's why I'm joking about the fact that it's not a movie. And that's actually a complaint that I read online, but I'm not the only one that have. I thought I was the only one who felt this way just after watching episode 8.
That's
The
the thing.
problem, and that's the problem of all Disney stuff, is that this thing is 8 episodes long of 35 minutes. It could have been a movie of 2 hours and a half. You could erase so many things that are completely useless, and who knows? Perhaps it would have been a better reaction from the audience. Who knows?
Yes, I mean, this is a 8 episode, and close to an hour each episode.
No, half an hour.
Series. Half an hour.
Half an hour each. Yeah.
Which you commented earlier, because we talked about this before. They seem to end it halfway through a scene, or it's not exactly a cliffhanger each episode.
I don't know who edited this show, by the way. Yeah.
It is a bit odd. Yeah, some of them, I used to say, is half an hour, and it varies in length. It's it wants to be its own thing, because I think it knows it has to break or try and push forward to whatever your audience is chasing its audience, or its audience will find it. And sometimes, I mean, with a lot of the audience relationships, is almost like there are some things where it almost wants you to hate it, almost, but it is very. It's almost like the Lord of Rings of Power with on Prime. This series does best if you've never actually seen Star Wars before, or you're coming into it completely fresh, you don't know what it is, you've heard about it, let me just jump in here, where it doesn't really matter. If you have any inkling or any want to hold on to any of the lore, you're gonna hate it. If you are just rather at a point of, well, whatever, I'm don't really invested in it, then you will just watch it happily enough. It would do better as maybe a 2 hour movie or a big movie of the week if they did that, which I think Star Wars probably works best on that format. A lot of forward flashing, back flashing of an incident that happened, which is, I suppose, helps unravel a mystery, kind of like what did happen at this incident where we had a murder happen and what really happened, and that's all it is. It's not like a who done it, but rather why they did it kind of thing. And it's although I must say I did enjoy the series just on that level. It was kind of like it just if you divorce yourself from it totally, as in Star Wars, you'd probably enjoy it as it's pacey, some action
Yeah,
scenes.
I want to say that, yeah, I don't want to be misunderstood. It's just actually that there are some parts of the show that were really good. That's actually maybe the saddest thing. Is that actually that they were, it's like sinusoidal. I don't know if you say that in English. It's like actually that a roller coaster. It's a better word.
Yeah, yeah.
That you have maybe 1, 2 episodes where you are really invested in what's happening, and then there is a filler episode or two, and then it comes back. And I'm thinking, this is so dumb because you have 8 episodes, which is a problem already. If you have only 8 episodes, do you actually need filler episodes? Especially if it's a weekly release, you're going to lose your audience because your audience is waiting for having the next installment. They say, okay, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, I want to see this. And then you disappoint them by doing just a filler thing. Talking about the flashbacks, I said there was some flashbacks 15 years ago. For some reason, there's a flashback episode, I think episode 3 or something. And then there's another one, exactly the same, from a different point of view, episode 6 or 7. And I think, why? What was the point? Honestly, I don't know if you learn more from in the second episode of the flashback. I say, just to feel 8 weeks long, I'm guessing. And yeah, I thought it was a very, I don't know, again, if it's the director's choice or if it's the studio's choice, someone is to blame here. Now, the show itself, that's the worst part, is that I think it has, that's what he's saying, it's very good sometimes. It has potential. There is a great story to tell here. And I can't blame even the actors and the cast because I think that overall they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
But they've not given not great stuff. But so the twin sisters actresses, I can't blame them. They did what they were getting, and they're okay. The guy who plays he's not supposed to be called Sith, but he is a Sith. He's extremely good. The guy who apparently was in Squid Game, I don't recognize it because I watched Squid Game and I'm trying to see, is it like the
I
main
think
guy
the
from
main
Squid Game?
character. He was the main protagonist in
Like the main protagonist. Maybe it's the long hair, but anyway. And I think he is doing a very good job in this one.
Yep.
But his character is hate. You have to hate him. That's the problem. I think it's how it's written. That's the problem. But it's not him. The how they wrote him after like episode 6 or 7, after you discover first of all how stupid he is as a Jedi and how terrible the things he's done in the past. How can you relate to him? So I wonder who is the hero of the story. Who am I supposed to say? Okay, go for it, etc. I was actually rooting for the Sith at some point. I'm not even joking.
You're right. It's been crazy. Like these Jedi basically have done they've gone on to a mission where they have trying to discover this. They come across this convergence in the Force, which is kind of like something that they find of great interest in, and they find it's this carbon of space witches who seem to practice powers of the Force, but don't call it the Force. They kind of give it their own name and all that, which is interesting. It's like, hey, everyone has a different name or philosophy about a certain power or whatever it is. But they make such a hash of the mission, as in they actually basically, and we're going to spoilers, they basically decimate the entire, by maybe not designed, by impetuousness and by accident, they actually causing the whole little tribe to basically self-implode and explode, probably literally. I think a good performance by the character who plays Sai, it was in Squid Games, but it is because he's such a very empathic kind of character. You feel he's very softly spoken. It's difficult to hate him, but then he's done some really ridiculous actions, which causes the whole premise of this story. Basically, it is promising, but it's like it's I don't know. You want to root for it because you can see seeds of, hey, this isn't interesting. We're not revisiting our immediate past. This is not member berries. This is something new. I can push it into new directions. You have to forget the law, I'm afraid, but this is the only place we can go. Um, but then it kind of the format of it just works against it, which is you feel sorry for the series itself. I don't think, I'm not sure, but I don't think there's a season two announced as yet. So
And that's the problem of the numbers that we mentioned before in the podcast, is that numbers are not that great. That being said, Andor didn't have great numbers, and he still got a season two. So who knows? Just a note about this. I think we gave valid reasons why we are kind of have mixed feelings about this show. Not good, not bad. Just a note: there are a lot of morons online actually who apparently did kind of try to destroy this show for all the wrong reasons, by leaving reviews on stupid websites. And I hope actually that they didn't have much influence on the fate of this show, because you can like or dislike a show or a movie, but it has to have real reasons, and not. I wouldn't even mention what reasons they have, but all the stupid reasons is not worth talking about this. Yeah, about the future of this, that's maybe for me the worst part. It's because my favorite episode is the last one. It is the final episode, and but that's actually a shame, because is it like too little, too late, in my opinion? Because in a way, the damage is already done. Perhaps, maybe I'm wrong. As I said, because I felt actually that because of this weekly release, they might have lost already the Star Wars fans or whatever. Because yeah, the last episode was a good pacing. There was a lot of things happening. Finally,
yeah.
we have finally had a glimpse of Dark Plagueis, which is a great, cool stuff to see on screen for the first time since it was mentioned like 19 years ago. Since especially because the book by James Luceno is not canon, so it's the really first time. The book by James Luceno is an amazing book, by the way. Yeah, so it's obviously it makes sense that Dark Plagueis is involved. Because what the witches have done is perhaps what he's about to do to create Anakin, whatever, by mistake, whatever. That's kind of what James Luceno was talking about in the book. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and the character of Kimir is interesting. The fact actually that they go on a bittersweet ending, I like that part. But actually, although kind of we knew that there would be the one who started as a good girl end up being the one turning to the dark side and going and the other around, it was kind of, you could have seen it coming. But I thought it was cool to end the first season of a show with something like I don't know if it's the last shot, but almost the last shot of Kimi having a real acolyte, and both of them actually looking at the horizon. So we're talking about the villains, literally focusing on the villains side points of view. In my opinion, that should have been actually the whole show. They should have had the guts to do the whole show from the point of view of Kimir. That would have been even a better show. But that's a personal opinion. When I heard years ago that they were doing a show called The Acolytes, I was dreaming. I was imagining stuff that would never happen. I was imagining, honestly, I tell you now, when they announced it, I don't know when it was. I wonder if I don't know,
2 years ago?
3, 4 years ago, when they
Yeah.
announced something of the Acolytes, thinking, yeah, that's great. And it's set hundreds of years back then. It was hundreds of years before Phantom Menace. Okay. I was thinking, are we going to see Korriban? I was thinking, maybe we're going to see Korriban, then we're going to see the Academy of the Sith, and they're going to be and they're hiding from the Jedi, and they're going to reveal themselves. I was having so much fun imagining stuff. Well, we didn't get it, but at that level, at least I would have loved to actually to see a show from the point of view of the villain. But anyway, it's Disney, so I'm not asking too much anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, that's a shame because we have such a rich, kind of like almost unwritten era of before where you can go if you want to go in that direction where you are not you can't, you know. I think before this, all the series have had a immediate post, or even with the films, a pre kind of like original era kind of like setting. So you kind of know where characters will end up, or you know where they've come from and all that. And so there's the kind of no kind of dramatic or kind of new areas to be engaged or create new stories, myths, or kind of lore almost. But here it bravely does try and do that, but maybe it is set a bit too close to, you know, maybe they should go back further. But I mean, it seemed a bit more fresher than other series that we've had. I mean, imagine if this has been the first series that you started off with the Disney Star Wars. So you had the Mandalorian, which is quite good, but you had this right at the beginning also, where you could, oh, this is characters you don't know, so you don't know where they'll end up and all so forth. But it was promising. That's the thing. I mean, these shows are we mentioned at the beginning of the episode how expensive these streaming episodes are, and
So
difficult difficult model to justify unless there's really great word of mouth, and then you can add into merchandise and all that. Which I think did happen with the Mandalorian in the first 1 or 2 seasons at least. Here, obviously, it kind of is disappearing after its run. So it is interesting times for this property on Disney's hands right now. Anyway, we'll see. Well, thanks, Richard, and the others who joined us, James and Alfonso. And until next time, see you then.
We hope you enjoyed this film and TV review.com episode. Catch the latest film and TV reviews, together with regular episode content from the world of film and TV every week. See you soon. Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today.